Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to get started here shortly. We have a couple people are still joining in on the webinar session, so welcome to those on the webinar as well. And I'm going to hand it over to Mary Jo Daniel, who Associate VPR, who will get us started and kick it off.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to see those of you who are here in 3D. Welcome, and welcome to those of you out in the Zoomiverse there. I'm Mary Jo Daniel. I'm the Associate Vice President for Research, and really glad to see you all today. Just so everybody knows, we are recording this session, so keep that in mind, and it will be available later for those who aren't able to join us today. And for those of you in the room, there is microphones here that pick up anything you say, so keep that in mind too. Let's see if it's gonna move forward for us. What am I playing it, Greg?
Just
We'll have to do it. Okay, so there's our agenda for today. I'm saying hello, welcome. And after the land acknowledgement, we'll hear from both President Stokes and Provost Holloway, and then we'll hear from Vice President Dr. Ellen Fisher, and then we will have a Q&A period at the end. Those of you who are joining us virtually, you have a Q&A link at the bottom of your screen that you can put in questions at any point, and when we get to the Q&A session, I'll moderate those questions and we can put them to the Vice President. Those of you in the room, we ask you to hold your questions till the end, and then we'll take the questions from you as well. So with that, founded in 1889, the University of New Mexico sits on the traditional homelands of the Pueblo of Sandia. The original peoples of New Mexico, Pueblo, Navajo, and Apache, since time immemorial, had deep connections to the land and have made significant contributions to the broader community statewide. We honor the land itself and those who remain stewards of this land throughout the generations, and also acknowledge our committed relationship to Indigenous peoples. We gratefully recognize our history. With that, I'm going to ask President Stokes to join us and give a few words of welcome.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here virtually or in person. It's great to see some faces in person. I think it's a really important thing for us to consider what the state of the university research is at our institution. So I'm grateful to UNM's Vice President for Research for putting this together. I know your whole team did it, but really glad to see this going on. As the state's only Research One institution, we do take significant pride in cultivating a culture of innovation that thrives on diversity and empowers breakthroughs in some unexpected places. Whether it's radical thinking about how to land payloads on Mars, or rising to meet our ambitious grand challenges on Earth, Global researchers are changing the way we look at not only our world, but the world beyond. Every day, our students, our postdocs, our researchers are bringing their unique perspectives and experiences to our classrooms, laboratories, and facilities, so everywhere on our campus and beyond, where they're asking tough questions and boldly looking for often unconventional answers. Working together, our LOBO researchers have the resources and opportunities to explore and create at the forefront of their respective disciplines. And the results, as you'll discuss today, I think will speak for themselves. Also recognizing the challenges that we face in our research mission as well. But research itself isn't a means to an end, an equation to be solved. At its heart, it defines who we are and what we do. And that is why when you get a look at our 2040 opportunity defined plan, you will find that research is a foundational component of our planning for this institution's future. It is a multi-year plan intended to shape the future of our institution. In fact, the very first goal of our plan, which we are calling Advance New Mexico, specifically embraces research and education programs that support success of the economy of the state. That goal is directly linked, I think, with Dr. Fisher's vision of research as education. And this is important because, as I'm sure you've seen, and as you'll also likely talk about, the act of discovery is often just as important as the discovery itself. We also thrive when we work together, often finding collaboration in unexpected places and across unexpected disciplines. Interdisciplinary research is also part of our creative approach to research, to our work, and it reaffirms our role as the state's driving force of innovation and discovery. Finally, our partnerships with industry also define who we are and how we work, and continue to be a priority for us and for UNM research. Our proximity to so many national labs and scientific facilities is a genuine attraction, and it helps us recruit administrators, faculty, scientists, and researchers from really all over the world. In fact, without the federal research and development funding we receive, our state wouldn't have nearly as many resources in terms of research and tech for entrepreneurs to choose from. We have always found the public sector to be a willing partner with us, whether it's collaborating with Los Alamos or Sandia National Labs, research funding from NIH, or intern opportunities at Kirtland Air Force Base. In fact, we are presently in the conceptual design stage for the creation of the New Mexico Research Innovation Collaborative. It's a facility, it's a building on our longstanding relationship with Sandia National Laboratories Advanced Materials Lab. In the coming years, we look forward to continuing to build these partnerships on our strong foundations with industry and collaborations with the labs. But actually, that's enough from me. It's your turn. Actually, I believe it's the provost's turn. Stand up here and fill in all of the blanks I left out. Thank you. Have a great town hall.
I had these lovely talking points, but she said them all, so let's see some other things instead. I actually really want to pick up on the UNM 2040 theme that President Stokes initiated. We've got 5 goals that we lay out in UNM 2040, and I hope folks have started to take a look at those and react to them and think about them. First one, President Stokes mentioned, advancing New Mexico. UNM is an economic engine for the state. We're also a knowledge engine for the state. Many of the challenges and opportunities that face this state really relate to the kind of new ideas we can create, not just in science, certainly in science and technology, but also in healthcare, in the humanities, in the social sciences. There are no challenges in New Mexico that are to be addressed purely through technical means, that are to be addressed through means of policy, they're going to be addressed through means of culture. Everything that we do as a research institution really is about advancing New Mexico. And you know, one of the things we'll hear Vice President Fisher, I'm sure, say is words like not just research, but creativity, creative works, culture, because that's part of our scholarly enterprise too. Another goal in UNM 2040 is student experience and educational innovation. Again, completely tied to our research mission, research as education, even at the undergraduate level, to learn, to grow, to develop intellectually in a research environment from faculty, from instructors who are themselves researchers and creating new knowledge is a different experience than one would have at a non-research university. Next goal in UNM 2040 is about diversity and inclusion. Again, intimately tied to research. There are multiple reasons why diversity and inclusion matters. It's a reason because of social justice. Populations have been marginalized, made vulnerable. It's incumbent on us as humans to try and address those injustices. But also, it's about legitimacy. If we as an institution represent the state, we must represent the state in all of its facets. And then finally, diversity is about creativity. Diverse teams create more ideas, create faster, create better ideas, lead to solutions and new discoveries more quickly, more richly. So goal number 3 ties deeply to that research mission of the university. for sustainability in all its aspects, environmental sustainability, financial sustainability of the institution, the social connection of the institution to the state. Again, deeply rooted in our research capacity. Imagine we truly used UNM as a laboratory, a living laboratory, to understand how large institutions can operate more sustainably. That's an opportunity we have that we can make good on through the research mission we have. And then finally, the last 2040 goal, one university. Ellen is about partnerships. She's about team science. It's about creating opportunities across the institution with the branch campuses, with all of the disciplines here in Albuquerque, to find new ideas, new discoveries that we wouldn't create in our own little isolated towers, if you will. So there's opportunities to connect that are described in UNM 2040. It's really deeply rooted in what we do as a research institution. So I look forward to hearing about the state of research at UNM. Dr. Ellen Fisher.
Thank you. And thank you, both President Stokes and Provost Holloway, for coming and sharing your thoughts with us today. And I hope this will do it justice. I don't know if I'm covering the entire state of research at UNM. That's going to be a hard thing to do. But I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about what our office has been doing over the last year or so since I've been here, and also what we're doing moving forward. So I want to start by acknowledging my team, as President Stokes said. I have an amazing team, and I will start with our leadership in VPR. We have Mary Jo Daniel, who's not at the beginning, who is our Associate VP for Research. She's been primarily working towards being over our operations. And so if you have any questions about operations, address them to Mary Jo. And then we have, if we go clockwise, we have Melissa Emery Thompson, who joined in the fall as one of our interim assistant vice presidents for research. Melissa has been basically focused on faculty and student success programs, and so that's kind of her niche right now. And then in the lower right-hand corner, we have Dave Hansen, who also is one of our interim assistant vice presidents for research, and he has been really focused on our external stakeholders, external partnerships, and that includes with the national labs, with corporate engagement, et cetera. And then as we go finish out the circle, we have Patrick Bridges, who's the special assistant to the VPR for research IT. And he has really been focused on trying to create some structure around our research IT efforts. And we'll hear more about Patrick on another slide as well. And then I'm not going to go all the way around. This is the rest of our third floor staff. But I do want to point out we have 3 students who also joined fall semester and stayed with us for the spring semester, which we're really excited about. And again, President Stokes said, my team really helped me put this together. They did. I couldn't do anything without my team. So I want to just acknowledge everybody here. I also want to just point out that Tabitha Thomas, who's over here in the lower left-hand corner, she recently moved on to a different position at the university, and we're very sad to see her go. She's still at UNM, so I guess we're okay with that. But we're going to miss Tabitha, and so I want to give special acknowledgement to Tabitha. Okay. With that, I want to just say that today I'm going to cover these 4 general ideas. And then we're going to talk about what sort of we're doing in the future, not so far future, but we have some things planned for this year. So the key ideas here are transparent communication, research strength, partnerships and collaborations, and then support of researchers. So transparent communication, that's sort of why we're here. I decided I really wanted to do a town hall, mostly so that we have that Q&A session at the end, so that if people want to ask me questions, I'm here. I'm happy to communicate. I have people who know me, gotten to know me a little bit, realize that I'm a pretty straight shooter. So if you ask me a question, I will answer it. And you might not like the answer, but you're going to get a straight answer from me. So to that end, here's a list of a bunch of things that we've been doing to try to build on that idea of transparent communication in a variety of different ways. I've been sending out messages to campus only on a monthly basis because I didn't really want to overwhelm people's inboxes. But we've also done things like created, we have a PI listserv. We also have a postdoc listserv that we just generated last year. Town halls have been doing this. They've also done some faculty meetings. The provost and I met with assistant faculty a couple of weeks ago with associate assistant professors 2 weeks ago, associate professors last week. So we're really trying to make the rounds there. I've also volunteered to come to any faculty meeting that anybody wants to bring me to, departmental, college, et cetera. And I've also been working with our Research Administrators Network. I've been to several of their meetings that they meet on a monthly basis. So also trying to connect with that side of the research enterprise. And then I just want to point out that UCAM does an amazing job of following a lot of research stories. We try to shift stories to them when we have them, or we also produce our own as well within our office. And then also we have upped our game in social media. We have Natalie to thank for that, who's also back here taking pictures. We now have a Twitter account, an Instagram account, and a LinkedIn account. If you want to talk to me, that's not the way to do it, but we will respond if you communicate with us through those social media outlets. Okay, so the second area is about research strength and creative excellence, and we really are interested in trying to build that at UNM, to build a culture of research strength and creative excellence. So I'm going to start by just saying a couple of things that we've been doing around research infrastructure. The first has to do with some IT things that we have added over the past year. The first is our InfoReady review platform, which is the software platform that we're using for all of our internal competitions, as well as the limited competitions when external entities say you can only have one from each institution. We're now running them through all this through InfoReady. And I want to just point out two things. One is that it's optimized the entire process. It's really been a time saver for our research administrators. But beyond that, it also has been used widely. We've left it open to others on campus. So the colleges have been running things like student award programs have been running through there, as well as the provost office, and faculty senate also has been running things through that. So we've also made this available to the entire community to be able to streamline those kinds of processes where you have applications that are being put in and reviews that are being done and so forth. The second is Qualtrics, which is an advanced survey platform, and our office is covering the cost of a university-wide site license. And one of the things that we did was we said we really want to make this available at no cost to the researchers, and it is available to faculty, staff, and students, including undergraduate students across all of the UNM campuses. That includes the branch campuses, it includes HSC. And what we've learned from that also is that people are using it. And we're still rolling it out. And so those that were not very familiar with it have not yet gotten access just because they need to get trained and so forth. But people who are already using it or were familiar with it are using Qualtrics right now. And that includes people on the HSC campus, as well as within other offices like athletics, the libraries. And so again, this is something that has been a real asset for the entire UNM community. And then the last one is our electronic research administration system. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that right now because you're going to hear a lot more about it in the coming months. We've started the implementation process. It's going great, right? Everybody on my team, it has been an awesome experience. And honestly, I say that kind of jokingly, but really this has been a collaboration across multiple units. And it really has come together in terms of the team that's working on this. We had some little fits and starts at the beginning, but it has been a real pleasure to be working on something that has a lot of impact, and ultimately that'll get implemented in the fall. We do have, if you have questions, you can, there's an email address up here that you can send an email to. We also have a streamlined listserv in case you want to get all the updated information on the technical bits and pieces of how the implementation process is going. The second piece around infrastructure has to do with our program for enhancing research capacity, or PERC, which is one of our, if you see the symbol over on the far right, the We Are One Faculty Success Program. We have several elements of that, so you'll see several slides when you see that symbol. It's part of what we've branded under the We Are One brand, which is awesome. And this is about essentially providing relatively small amounts of money for people to increase capacity, research and scholarly capacity through acquisition or upgrade of shared instrumentation. So we really are trying to invest in those places where they're going to have multiple people being able to use it. So we're going to lift all boats by increasing the capacity across our institution. We have set aside $400,000 per cycle in FY22. We've run 2 cycles. One is was last fall. The second one is running right now, and the due date down at the bottom here is March 11th. And so you still have time, about 10 days, to get a proposal in if you would like to. It's 25 to 75K per award. We have a broad definition of equipment or instrumentation. And just as long as it's not like a desktop computer or solely being used in the context of a classroom, for example, we are open to ideas for how we might increase research capacity through this program. Okay, the next place I want to talk a little bit about is, this is my Mario slide, and this is where we're gonna level up. So one of the things that we've started to look at, and I will also just note that it was part of the research strategic plan, the 2020 research strategic plan, was to identify areas of strength that we could potentially level up, in my words, okay? And what I mean by that is really if we can create strategic focus areas and build on and coordinate what we already have existing here, it doesn't take that much to do that. It just takes some intentionality and the ability to coordinate across multiple entities. And I'll give you a couple examples of where we're doing that. And again, building on what both President Stokes and Provost Holloway, one of my mantras is that research is education. So I feel like this is a place where we can really level up by having an integrated approach and providing internships and experiential learning kinds of activities for students with cutting edge technologies and really working on that idea of building the 21st century workforce. So I'm going to give you 3 areas where we have identified where we already have strength, and maybe we just need to, another thing I'm fond of saying, put a bow on it. If we can just put a bow on it and level it up, it might be in a different category. So the first one I'm going to talk about is arid climates. And I've gone with this moniker of arid climates and potentially building an arid climates institute, because when you look at what we have already going on, we have a lot going on around water, but it's more than just water. It also has to do with things that are also impacted by being and living in a state of it that is an arid climate. So we have things around drylands ecosystems, we have things around reforestation that are impacts around climate change, population health, art and ecology. These are things that already exist at UNM and are doing great. And my thought is, can we take that and pull it together under some kind of umbrella structure that doesn't dissemble what we already have built here at UNM, but actually creates something that raises the visibility and allows us to do bigger and greater and more things by simply leveling up or putting a bow on it, whichever one you like better, and organizing those internal assets to really take advantage and realize our full potential in a particular area. So arid climates is one of these areas. We started to have some discussions. We pulled together some groups, and we had an initial discussion a few weeks ago. And from that, we had a couple people come back and say, hey, I've got somebody else that just joined or wants to do, can we have them come to the next conversation? And so we're right now in the process of scheduling some more conversations in this particular area. And I'm really super excited about where we might be able to go with this. The second area that we've identified is quantum science. This is an area where UNM has been part of the quantum revolution for decades. And it's really one of those little known things about UNM, well, some of us know about it, but a lot of people don't know about it. And the state of New Mexico, that we really have a quantum ecosystem that was initiated by UNM in the presence of the two large national labs, Los Alamos and Sandia. And if you just look at a few of the assets that we already have in this area, we have the Center for High Technology Materials, we have CQUIC, which is the Center for Quantum Information and Control. And we've been, for at least the last couple of years, been doing a road mapping exercise with Sandia regarding creation of a joint institute, the Quantum New Mexico Institute. And so this is really another opportunity for us to think about how do we level up and really get known for what we're doing in quantum science. And I'll just point out that the graphic over on the right side of the slide here really shows what a whole ecosystem around quantum information science, quantum science really looks like. And I think there's a lot to be said for thinking about how we can, again, put a bow on this. And so we're going to start doing that. Well, we've already started doing it, but we're having a quantum symposium the end of this month, March 31st and April 1st, that's been organized by CQUIC and our offices. And we're really super excited about, again, starting down that path of saying, we're going to launch this joint institute between UNM and Sandia. And essentially going to, I love this tagline that New Mexico is a quantum state. And so, you know, if you're a physicist or a chemist like I am, you really appreciate those kinds of jokes. And we'll just go from there. Yeah. And the engineer in the room also laughed at it. So, okay. So that's the second area. The third area that we've identified, which is probably in the most nascent stages, has to do with building something around an information or data institute. And it's very nebulous right now. We just started discussions, but again, this is an area where we have a lot of internal assets that if we could bring them together under one umbrella, kind of an organizational structure, we might be able to actually do something new and different and interesting. And some of the things that, one of the things I didn't put up here, but I just learned within the last couple of weeks that we actually have at UNM unique databases that no one else has. And I think that may be one of the places where we may be able to offer something to the world that hasn't already been done in some of the other data institutes that are being stood up around the country and around the world. So I'm super excited about what we're going to see coming out of this. And also note that this ties really nicely with the quantum initiative as well. And so I think there's some nice synergy that's going on. I'll also say, if we go back to the arid climates, there's a lot of data that's being produced and lots of big data. So again, the data becomes really important in these kinds of opportunity spaces. Okay, and I'm also going to say this is another place where we have strength is in our grand challenges. And about 4 years ago, when President Stokes came here, this is one of the first things that she did was she initiated the Grand Challenges program and identified 3 areas for investments, and those were substance use disorder, successful aging, and sustainable water resources. All 3 of these areas have actually, we built on strengths that already existed, and we put some bows on them, the Grand Challenge bow in this case, all right? And all 3 of them have been successful, if not wildly successful. They've been successful, and they have actually, again, raised visibility, not just within UNM in terms of what people are doing across campus, but also with our communities and with the state. And it really is a signature program for UNM. So later in this talk, I'm going to talk a little bit more about where we see the future of Grand Challenges going and give you a little bit of insight where we want to take these. We're not getting rid of these areas. These are still areas of strength for us, but we're going to build on the brand that's been built by the Grand Challenges program at UNM. Okay, so the next section is partnerships and collaborations. I am all about partnerships. I don't think you can do it without collaboration, and especially not today. If we're trying to solve those grand challenges, we got to have teams of people going after things and from different perspectives. So I just want to give a shout out to our centers and institutes. I obviously don't have a complete list of everything that's available at UNM in the area of the Center and Institute, but I just want to say again, I support shared resources. This is one of my big areas of interest is how do we build things bigger and better? How do we make more out of a little thing in a resource constrained environment? We do shared resources. Now, these ones are on here in part because not only are they available to UNM researchers, but these in particular have set up centers that are also available to our corporate partners. So we have industry partners that can come in and use these facilities. So we're again, making things available and really building collaboration with external partners by making these kinds of assets available to people who want to use them. The second piece in this is the Northern Rio Grande Corridor Consortium, which you may or may not have heard of. It's a brand new effort that was initiated by the presidents of the universities that you see here, UNM being at the top of my list. It's not the top of everybody's list, but UNM, NMSU, New Mexico Tech, and UTEP being the major research universities that have come together along with Sandia and Los Alamos to think about how we can build on our collected assets to, again, try to do something on a regional basis that would elevate our region in a variety of different areas, which I have listed in the focus area box over on the right-hand side of the slide. And we've been having pretty regular meetings with this group. We have some additional partners that have jumped in on some of the things, and we are in the process of putting together teams to go after large proposals that are coming out of Washington, D.C. We're also having lots of really interesting conversations around economic development and how the NRGCC can contribute to those as well. These are the kinds of partnerships that I think will really help our region, and UNM is a major driver of that, as Provost Holloway noted. And so I'm really excited about what is possible with groups like this. I'm also going to I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one, but the Corporate Engagement Network got launched last month by President Stokes. It is largely being driven by Rainforest Innovations to try to capitalize on our corporate partners and understand how we interact with both small and large companies outside of UNM. And we want to be able to create a network across the institution so we understand how we are collectively interacting with those companies and industry partners that are primarily interested in research, but might also be interested in scholarships or interested in other aspects, other ways of interacting with UNM. And so in particular, my office has been working with the Foundation, Rainforest, and Anderson to come up with ways that we can systematically collect data and be able to share that and in a meaningful way. And we are walking down that road in conjunction with them. And we've been doing it in particular around the quantum related science because of some of these other activities, the quantum symposium and a couple of other things that we've been doing with quantum science. So, and then I also wanted to point out the New Mexico EPSCoR program, which is housed here at UNM, but actually serves the entire state of New Mexico. And I wanted to mention EPSCoR today for a couple of reasons. The first of which is that as of January 1st, we have a new director, which is Dr. Ganesh Balakrishnan. It goes by Gunny, and he has taken over because Bill Mitchner is retired as of today. Bill Mitchner's retirement is effective today. And we're super excited to bring on Gunny, and with his leadership, we're hoping to diversify the EPSCoR portfolio. And just recently, we submitted a DEPSCoR proposal, which is the Department of Defense's equivalent to the NSF program. And the other thing I wanted to mention with respect to EPSCoR is that the current track 1 proposal, which is EPSCoR's major funding resource, the current one is focused on smart grids, which has just been had enormous impact on the state of New Mexico, both economically, but also in just plain old connectivity with some of our rural populations, which has been just fantastic to see. And I'm super excited about the renewal, which is going in later this year, that is going to be focused on advanced additive manufacturing. And so that is also another really exciting area that we think will be able to be translated out in lots of very interesting ways to our rural populations, as well as to our industry partners. San Diego National Labs and Los Alamos National Labs are both very interested in additive manufacturing. And so we're really excited about the possibilities that exist with this new proposal that's going in this year. Okay, and I just mentioned National Labs. I mentioned them throughout, so I'm not going to go through each one of these different areas or touch points. But honestly, this is something that is unique to UNM, the proximity to Los Alamos, as well as San Diego, but also the Air Force Research Labs. We have lots and lots of different ways to interact. We're working on trying to build those up specifically in the areas from my perspective in my office is more research collaboration, but also these ideas of the workforce development, our faculty loan program, which is being managed by the Provost Office. And I think that's going to also be able to build up our relationships with San Diego and Lano. And then also, again, as I mentioned earlier, the Quantum New Mexico Institute. So there are lots of different ways for us to interact and to, again, be greater than the sum of our parts by really partnering with the national labs in our area. Okay, this section is on researcher support. And again, I just want to point out with all these great things that are happening, we got to have some support mechanisms in place. And so I'm also going to give you a couple of metrics here about data because I love data. And so I wanted to show some data. These are our research metrics. This is just for the main central campus and branch campuses. If you look at this, we've got the number of proposals is on the y-axis on the left, and the dollar amount of those proposals is on the right. If you look at FY21, you see that we had a little bit of a dip in the number of proposals submitted, but the dollar amount was more. So that's another indicator that we're going after great bigger proposals that are more collaborative in nature, and we're hoping to continue that trend. The last bar for FY22, we have actuals in the pale green up through Q2, and then what we've projected up there is just based on the level of activity we generally have in quarters 3 and 4. That's shown in the turquoise, and so that's what we anticipate by the end of FY22. That's where we'll be, which is not so bad, all things considered. The other piece of good news, this is now research expenditures, and this is a comparison across the last 5 fiscal years, including the current one, through January. Okay, so each of this it's a direct comparison as opposed to a partial comparison. So in January of FY18, 19, 20, 21 are shown here. And the big takeaway from this is, again, we saw in FY21, because of the pandemic, we saw a dip in the research expenditures. But if you look at FY22, we're back up and we're actually higher than we have been for the last 4 fiscal years before that. So we're excited about that. I think it looks like we're on an upward trajectory to end the year, quite a bit over where we were last year, but even more so over, well, the difference is less over the previous years, but we're still going to be up over the last 3 years before that as well. So we're super excited about that, showing a positive trajectory, and we're hoping that that's going to continue over the next few years as well. Okay, I'm running out of time. Okay, I need to speed it up according to Mary Jo. Mary Jo has told me I need to speed it up. Okay. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. These are other elements. The next few slides are elements of our faculty success program. I do want to point out a couple of things here. The summer research funding, we are running it again this summer. We did it last year. It was super impactful. We gave funding to 87 faculty. We're running it again. The deadline is March 25th of this year. And we have improved our processes and really made an effort to ensure access by diverse faculty to ensure that our faculty who really need it are making sure that they get into this program. The faculty scholarship time, this is where you can apply for a semester off or course release for 1 semester. And we are in the first semester of that. And we have 21 faculty who received awards this semester. 43% of those went to underrepresented minorities. And in the fall, we have 24 faculty that will receive awards, and we're going to run it through the spring of 2023. The call for that proposals won't be out until May. We've been asked if we're going to institutionalize this. We're looking at that. We're going to see what the impact is and evaluate it probably sometime next year to decide whether or not we're going to continue it for subsequent semesters after both semesters next year. And then the last one, again, super excited about this. This is our fresh fostering research expansion in the social sciences and humanities. I just want to say we just kicked off the event last Friday, or kicked off the cohort. 22 faculty were selected. An incredibly diverse set of disciplines are in this. We have somebody from the law school. We have somebody from one of our branch campuses that are engaged in this. And again, this is a program where we are going to teach faculty how to go after extramural funding opportunities. It is a year-long program where we will be providing lots of support in developing research concepts and proposals. And we're going to provide mentoring and small group and peer review activities. We've identified 8 mentors who have agreed to work with the faculty in the program over the course of the next year. So that's super exciting. We also are working on ways to recognize and support postdoctoral scholars. This is a partnership across campuses. We've been working with HSC. We have some great postdocs who are developing a postdoc association. We, for the first time, celebrated Postdoc Appreciation Week last September. We're going to do it again this year. And we really do at UNM love our postdocs. So we want to continue to support that really important part of our research community. A couple notes about research administration. Here, I just want to point out that Office of Sponsored Projects now reports to the Office of Vice President for Research. We're super excited about that. And I'm super excited about a lot of stuff. I'm hearing myself say that over and over. But I think it's going to make for an easier time for us to work on streamlining processes for faculty in the proposal submission and award management processes. So we're really happy that we're now going to work more closely with them. And then I'd also like to point out Hannah Torres, who's our new director of the Faculty Research Development Office. We've also fully staffed that back. We've had quite a bit of staff turnover there. We are, again, moving forward with some new staff. We have one of our newest staff who just started today, sitting right next to the provost. And so we're looking to have some more really interesting training professional development programs coming out of that office, as well as really upping our game with respect to putting in competitive proposals. And last, in terms of research administration, we also have the Office of Research Integrity and Compliance. We changed the name, and that might not seem like a lot, but we changed it to emphasize that we're really about research integrity here. Compliance is important, but we don't want to be about compliance for compliance sake. We really want to be about integrity and education around what is research with high integrity. And that includes compliance, right? If you're compliant, it's good research. So Anna Tomlinson is the director, and then Linda Mayo is our OIRB director, and Lene Esta just joined us in the last month or so as the director of conflict of interest in research and research misconduct programs. Okay, so the last couple minutes that I don't have, according to Mary Jo, the future of UNM research. I'm going to have just a few slides to highlight some of the things that we're super excited about moving forward. Okay. The first is the UNM 2040. I think the provost did a great job of demonstrating how research, scholarship, and creativity are integral to every single one of UNM's goals for 2040. We are also working on our own strategic plan within the OVPR. It will line up with 2040, and each of our units is also going to have a strategic plan. And so we're going to set long-term goals, objectives, and metrics in conjunction with what's going on with the 2040. I said I would talk about grand challenges. I am. We're going to reimagine the Grand Challenge program we're starting this year. So I said earlier, we have these 3 really great areas that are of interest to New Mexico, the state of New Mexico, but also to the world. And we wanted to really build on that brand, but also engage more students and faculty in the Grand Challenges program. Also provide, again, there's a theme here, structure and education and the tools necessary to really be effective in trying to go after some of these grander problems and to solve the world's grand challenges. So we have a reimagined conceptual framework. We have a 3-phase program. The first phase is development and conceptualization. We're basically going to be building concept teams. We're going to provide small amounts of money to people for convening, really starting to think about how do you build a team, how do you identify gaps and bringing in new people and so forth. We're also going to be providing a lot of training and education around what makes for effective teaming, how do you visualize as a team and things like that. So really make these teams can converge on their ideas and be able to take them up to the next level. The next level is phase 2, where we will select a new set of Grand Challenges teams. We'll provide them with 2 years of support to really go after, again, building up that team, leveling up to the point where they can go after larger extramural funding kinds of things. And then phase 3 is maybe a little bit murkier in terms of what it really looks like. But again, back to my idea, we could maybe level up and create an institute or a center or something like that. But we also have built into our thinking here that there are graceful exits to be had as well. But sometimes teams just don't gel. Sometimes the field changes and they move around. We're going to provide ways for those teams to actually recirculate back in through this process, or potentially go off into what we're calling emeritus status. We don't know what that looks like yet, but we still want to be able to tap into them and make sure that we're engaging. And ultimately, the goal is that we're going to, with all of this activity, we're all going to have a higher level of competency with respect to what it takes to be part of a team. So as I said, we're starting soon. You can get involved. We're starting to have discussions around particular topic areas that have been proposed. 2 are going to be held next week. The big kickoff for this is going to be with the Team Research Symposium, which is April 19th and through the 21st. And that's what we're going to have some information sessions there as well. If you have ideas and you want to get involved, contact Anita Grierson. She's charged with running this whole show. And we're really, really excited about what's going to happen with this. And I can't wait to see what new concepts we get from our research community. We also have just launched the Zencada Graduate Student Fellowship. Zencada is the Spanish word for stride. And we had just last Friday, the announcement came out for applications, which are going to be due April 4th. Melissa Emery Thompson is the contact for us. I really am so happy that we're doing this, and we're thinking that the program is going to really be able to bring together a diverse set of graduate students to give them a different experience, and that will involve things like communication, but also government relations. How do you talk to the public about what you do? And also things like community engaged research. What does that mean? And how does that impact what you do regardless of what discipline that you're in. It's open to all graduate students across the entire institution. Again, we're trying to make this as inclusive as possible. And then we also have the Globally Engaged Research Award. This announcement went out some time ago. The deadline is this Friday. This is where we really want to be able to, again, recognize, raise visibility, and celebrate the global work that our faculty and students do. The first award this year is just for faculty, but we are planning to add on an undergraduate student award and a graduate student award to a suite of awards that recognizes international research. And then the last one I'm going to leave you with is Research and Discovery Week, which is, we're currently planning this, where what we're going to do is have a whole week where all we do is celebrate all the great research, scholarship, creativity that happens on this campus. We're planning on essentially having people basically come up with events. We're going to provide some money for some of them, but other things that, in addition to what's on here, we've been talking about having, there's going to be a museum day. We've talked about having book tents, book signings, with all kinds of really awesome things across our campuses. We're trying to get the branch campuses involved, and HSC has also said that they want to be engaged in this as well. So we're hoping that this is just going to be every day. There's going to be something fun going on, that somebody's going to learn something new about what happens in our labs, in our studios, across this campus on a daily basis. So again, Melissa is the contact for this. So if you have any ideas, suggestions, we would love to have them. And with that, I'm just going to leave this slide up here, and we can go to questions. I know, they're just giving me the look. I went on longer than I said I would. But upcoming spring events, upcoming fall events, really want to highlight the undergraduate research opportunity conference, UROC. As well as the Team Science Symposium this spring. In the fall, again, we're going to celebrate National Research Administrators Day, Postdoc Week, Research and Discovery, et cetera. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions, and I'm happy to take any questions.
I just want to say, we're all super excited. We're also getting tired. So we do have a couple questions that were submitted beforehand, but since you all made the trip, does anybody want to start with a question in here before I go to the pre-submitted ones? Okay, be thinking. So, and we also have one on electronically. Those of you out there in the Zoom world, if you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A and we will monitor that and get to them. So one of the questions that was submitted is, what is your office doing to move the university toward clean energy, both as research initiatives and within the campus?
I have a whole set of notes there, but basically, I would say that some of the stuff I talked about today really speaks to that. The arid climates area brings together some of our efforts in terms of sustainability and thinking about how do we survive the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years? How do we thrive as a society as our climate changes pretty dramatically over the next few decades. So I think we have a lot of researchers who are really focused on that piece of it. I'm also going to point out that we have a number of people who are really interested in things from a different perspective, like how do we move to a different energy economy? And so we've been in discussions around things like the hydrogen hub effort that's coming out of Department of Energy. People are working on new materials for things like photovoltaics or wind turbines and those kinds of efforts. We also have people that are looking at not just about how do we shift to a different economy, but in that transition period, we still have issues like with methane emissions. We just last week were listening to a group of researchers talk about work that they're doing to be able to monitor methane emissions and then be able to mitigate them as they go out into the universe. And so being able to address those kinds of things, mitigation, and then switching over to different energies. So I think our research is pretty well situated to be able to make good contributions to those kinds of things. From a sustainability on campus standpoint, that I've not been doing a whole lot about that, but I will say I've also been in discussions within the last couple of weeks around switching to thermal energy, being able to thermal energy storage as a way to heat and cool our buildings. And there are people here in Albuquerque who are interested in doing that kind of activity. And so we've been working with Teresa Constantinidis' office to think about how that works. It's not really under my office, but I've been engaged in some of those conversations, so.
Okay. Anybody here in the room, if you want to say anything, raise your hand. Otherwise, I'm going on. So, from Irene Salinas. We need to urgently build and invest in infrastructure in basic biomedical and bioengineering research. Our facilities are becoming outdated. Faculty need to stay competitive and is difficult without cutting-edge instruments and core facilities and supported staff. It's also very important so that we can give training opportunities for undergraduate students in laboratories and to retain our current successful faculty members. We are missing out a lot of money from NIH, including basic research, in my opinion. So it's more a suggestion than a question, but I think you might have an opinion.
Yeah, and again, I will just point out that I did speak to some of that in terms of core facilities, shared resources. That's one of the ways that in a resource constrained environment, we can actually make more of what we do have and be able to invest our money in a rational way that allows us to do more with less, if you will. So that's one piece of that, is that I agree that we need to have core facilities and really shift to the culture toward thinking about, if I have all the toys in one place and I can access them, that's just as good as having them in my own lab, for example. I also think though that this is something that sort of cuts across the entire institution. We were just in an academic program review last week for theater and dance. Facilities do age, and we lose the technology that we need regardless of what field we're in, whether it's biomedical sciences or theater and dance. And I think that one of the things that I've seen under President Stokes' leadership is that we are working on ways of thinking about how do we plan for that and how do we lay out something that might work for the entire campus. It might take a few years to get us there, but we do have plans to think about long-term strategies for how we get really good facilities here at UNM and think about how we replace what we currently have with something that meets the needs of the 21st century researchers, scientists, innovators, discoverers, creative artists, etc. So I think that we're working on a bigger plan, that we know that this is a problem and we're working on ways to address it from a bigger perspective.
In the shorter term, could PERC maybe?
Can you speak up a little loud so people can hear you?
Oh, I was just commenting that in the shorter term, could PERC maybe be a partial solution, work toward a solution?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things, I'm glad you said that, Hannah, that was one of the things that we were hoping to say is that, and in fact, one of the proposals we funded last fall came out of one of the fine arts departments for equipment that is to be used for digital media. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but from that standpoint, it was like, oh, if we could do this, then that actually brings us, it actually lifted everybody in that department to a place where they had access to the kind of equipment that they wanted for these particular kinds of projects. I think the same could be said of other things, lighting systems and so forth. We're talking about millions of dollars for some of those things, so it's only going to take you a little ways with the kind of money that we have available for that. But I will also say we've been having interesting conversations about how to get creative financing. Okay, and I hope there's none of our accountants in the room. Greg, close your ears. Because there are ways of thinking about how do we get a larger piece of instrumentation and maybe pay it off over time and things like that, so that we can have it now and be able to access that, maybe build up user fees to be able to pay back on a lease, for example. And so I've been having some of those conversations as well. So.
Okay, another one. This is from Ivan Deutsch. I love your statement, research is education. How do we make that case to the legislature and secure resources for research? What are some concrete asks?
Yeah, so a couple of things I'll say. One is that on the governor's desk right now, there is a bill for a closing fund, what's called a closing fund, which is essentially a fund to be able to use as cost sharing on some of the larger proposals for equipment, also some of these center type proposals, et cetera, where there is a required cost share. So we have been working that angle in terms of saying that we need these kinds of support systems within the state legislature. So that's a specific thing. In terms of the research as education, I think that what I always mean by that, I think about it from the standpoint of me being a chemist. I always say nobody became a chemist because they took a general chemistry class. They did it because they got into a lab or out in the field or whatever, and they really saw the power that chemistry has. It is the central science. nobody argue with me. It is essential science, and I'm smiling under my mask, you can't see that, but the point is that is how you spark passion, is by getting students into a lab or into some kind of experiential learning, whether they're doing, they're acting in a play or they are building something in a studio or whatever. That's how you spark their passion and get them really engaged in what they're doing. And that's how we build student success. And that's a story I don't think we've done enough to tell about what the student success outcomes are for our students who get engaged, especially at the undergraduate level. Students that get engaged in research have much higher success outcomes. And Tim Schroeder has been tracking some of that information. We've been providing him with information about students that are supported on sponsored projects. And we have data that demonstrates exactly that the students, when compared to their peers, the students that are engaged in funded research have better academic outcomes than the students that are not. And so as far as specific asks, I think we need to first tell the story and do a better job of explaining how that feeds into what we typically consider as academic success, which is people getting A's and B's in classrooms. And I'm saying we have to do this experiential learning piece and sell that story, and then ask for things that build on that piece, which are things like money for internships, money for research experiences in the summer. The chemistry department here is running a program for high school science teachers, and it's a very small program right now. It is being funded by PED for the stipends for the students, but we're also providing additional support because UNM thinks it's really important. We'd like to see that expand to beyond chemistry. Let's expand it to biology, expand it to physics, and give the teachers, the high school teachers, that level of experience. It's about getting in the lab and doing research. They're actually physically coming here and doing research in a lab with graduate students and undergraduates and postdocs and faculty. And so I think those kinds of things, I think we could go to the legislature. If we do a good job telling the story, then we can ask for those kinds of supports for experiential learning for students and for high school teachers.
Okay. Lorenda Bologna says she did not hear anything specific on research with tribal nations here in New Mexico.
That's true. I didn't touch on that. I will say that this is something that is being, I didn't explicitly talk about it. It has been integrated into a number of the things that I did talk about. The NRGCC, we are partnering with Navajo Tech there on the advanced manufacturing on that particular proposal. We have partnered with not only New Mexico Tech, but Eastern New Mexico, and I think there's SIPI and a couple others that are involved in that particular opportunity. The quantum site as well, we've engaged with a number of the tribal colleges. And so you're right, I did not explicitly point out those places where those kinds of interactions are happening. They are happening, and we're working really hard to fully integrate them into a lot of the things that we do.
And I mispronounced your name, I apologize, it's Malone. From Katie Witkowitz, there are data showing that women in research in particular are taking the brunt of COVID-related disruptions on their careers, particularly with respect to lower rates of grant and paper submissions in the past 2 years, as well as higher rates of service. How will the OVPR continue to support our female researchers and also advocate for women who will be disadvantaged into the future going forward in tenure and promotion processes?
Okay, so the last part I'm going to probably not respond to right away. The first part, one of our things with the We Are One Faculty Success Program is that we have, in everything that we've done, we really have given preferential treatment or preference to funding junior faculty, women faculty, underrepresented minority faculty. And so if I were to pull up the statistics on those programs, you'd see that we have disproportionately, I think it's to a certain extent, supported those groups because we understand that those are the folks that have been really hard hit by the effects of the pandemic. So junior faculty, women faculty, minority faculty. And then beyond that, we also have really been trying to talk to faculty about what their needs are. So one of the reasons we developed the FAST program, which is where you get a course release, is about time. And so one of the impacts of the pandemic, especially for women, has been a lack of time. So can we give you some time back? And that was the best way that we could think of in the short run to provide time back to faculty to be able to go after writing more proposals, finishing a paper, those kinds of things. And so we're continuing to evaluate what the impacts are. We're working with Advance very closely to do that. They're about to put out another survey around, again, where people are now, because the last time they did it was a little over a year ago. And I think there are some people that are walking around thinking, okay, pandemic's done, nobody's really suffering anymore. And that's simply not true. We have a lot of faculty and staff on this campus that are really still struggling with how do I manage all these things that I have to do. And we are also trying to figure out how to come out of that. So that's one thing we're going to continue to do, continue to look for different ways. If people have suggestions, we're open to other suggestions for ways that we can help that effort. And then I would say the last thing with respect to tenure promotion, I know, because again, I work very closely with the provost office, that there are lots and lots of things that the provost office has done to ensure that those faculty who are coming up through the ranks right now and facing those decision points in their careers are not going to be adversely affected, at least in ways that we can prevent them from being adversely affected from what they've suffered with respect to their career trajectories. So we're working with the provost office on those kinds of things as well. It's really, that's his purview, not mine. But I know that they're doing a lot in that regard as well. So.
You didn't want to add anything?
I'm happy to.
It's fine. Yeah,
Sure.
go for it.
So thanks for the question, and I'll be brief because this is the state of research. But so Ellen mentioned many things that are being done with regard to providing resources, time. Those are really important aspects. The other thing we know is that this is not a short game. This is a long game. COVID will continue to impact our junior faculty and our associate professors going up for promotion for the next 6 years or longer. And so a lot of what we're doing is really set around that long time scale. So one thing we did, of course, was extending the tenure clock for everyone with an opt-out. Another thing we're doing is crafting letters for external letter writers that we will use for the next many years that address COVID. So if you will, in 5 years, someone gets a letter saying, would you like to write a letter for Professor so-and-so at UNM? Remember, a bunch of her work was done during the COVID years. She is going up for tenure at the right time. Don't worry about what time it is and your impression of what time it should be. This is the right time for her. And we think that quality is more important than quantity. And so we're trying to put those long-term systems in place so that even several years from now, we're reminding department chairs, reminding tenure and promotion committees what was going on in 2020, 2021, beginning of 2022, that impacted the productivity of scholars when they were focused more on supporting our students perhaps and less on their research trajectory. So just some long-term things we're working on. Thanks, Elle.
Any other questions from the room? I got more that came in electronically. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Yolanda Lynn. I had a question about raising the minimum graduate rate, like the GA and TA rates, because I know that like as a PI, I can control what I pay, my graduate student as an RA, but there's like TA requirements and sometimes, they might have to shift. And that creates a lot of instability in their own finances on a year-to-year basis. And also, essentially, I'm creating an inequity amongst the graduate students in my department and across the college. So I feel like that would, yes. Is there anything we can do about that?
And the quick answer is yes. And I also know, again, I think that this is something that's going on with respect to not only the collective bargaining activity that's been going on around graduate students and the graduate student union, but also again out of the provost office, I think that you've charged a whole group of people with looking at what those things are and thinking about how can we stabilize and potentially centralize what who controls the stipends basically, or what those stipends are. And so I know that that's something that the provost office is looking at. From that standpoint, I think it could be a really good thing for everybody if we had some, not just a minimum, but also this idea of what it is that is rational across a variety of different disciplines. And I think that's where some of there's a sticky wicket in there somewhere, right? And it has to do with the fact that we've got a lot of different people in a lot of different places. And also one of the things that I've noticed at UNM is that there's a lot of piecemealing together different things. So a student might be partially on RA, partially on TA in one semester, and then have something different the next semester. So exactly what you're talking about. And so I know that efforts are underway, not necessarily under my purview, but anything we can do to help with that we'd be happy on those kinds of things, and especially from the standpoint of what it looks like in regards to a proposal, those kinds of things, which it does make a difference in when you submit a proposal. Sorry.
Okay. Another question we had pre-submitted beforehand. Thank you for sending out notices about funding opportunities, but what assistance is available to help researchers identify funding opportunities that are more targeted to specific interests and needs, including at the state level?
Yeah, so I noted our faculty research development office, we have been understaffed for most of my time here at UNM, but we are now fully staffed. We're super excited. So what the faculty research development office is charged with research development, which means that they, one of their areas of expertise is exactly that, is helping faculty find opportunities that are specifically targeted at particular areas. And so that's the first place I send people to say, okay, you want to find out more about research in area X, FRDO can help you do that. The other thing that we do is we support a couple of different databases on campus that are places where, again, faculty can learn how to use them. One of them is the Foundation Directory. Thank you, the Foundation Directory. And then the second one is Pivot. And both of those, you have to work a little bit to learn how to use them. But once you learn how to use them, they provide you a lot of opportunities, lots of search terms you can put in there to narrow it down to your specific field. And then the third thing that I would point to is that as far as the state goes, again, this is something that we've been working very closely with our government relations team, members of the provost office, to think about how we address these different potential funding streams from the state. And that includes our PSPs. And we have a faculty committee that's now looking at those on an annual basis. And we can help with how do you write a proposal for an RPSP. And also we have junior bill, which again is something that's new to me. I didn't know what a junior bill was. Those are one-time funds, but we're trying to sort that out and be able to help and give direction on how to do that. We've been working with the Associate Deans for Research from all the schools and colleges on things like federal priorities and how do you write a good proposal for a federal priority. And we're still learning about that as well. And we went through that process this year. We are working with 2 of the ADRs in particular who said, I really want to learn more about how to do this so that I can do it better with my faculty. And we're going to really do sort of a crash course with them about that. And so, and we're still learning about some of the other things that come down out of the state, how to work with the budget leadership team and the capital projects leadership team. I'm on both of those groups. And so I can help advocate for things that affect research, even if it's not directly under the OVPR. And I have done that where a school or a college is saying, I really want to build this building or do whatever. I have some ability to advocate in that regime as well. So, so those are just a few ideas right there.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, I wonder if you might comment on the state of collaborative research between main campus and North Campus, and how we might reduce barriers to faculty growing their careers with that strategy.
Yeah, well, we're doing it. There's a couple things I can point to that are just indicators that things are moving. We are one university, first of all. It's one of our goals for 2040. I hear it said all the time, we're one. We are one. We are one. And I do think that there have been some real successes over the last year, as far as I'm concerned. One is that we had ongoing discussions around IRB processes. And while we didn't coalesce into a single IRB, because in many respects that doesn't make sense, because they have sort of had different functions. The fact that we had these conversations, we reviewed some of the agreements between the two campuses. I just had somebody last week tell me, thank you for doing so much around the IRB. It's been so much easier to work across campuses. And I was shocked to hear that, because I really truly was not aware that anything that we've done had made an impact. But that idea of sort of saying, all right, let's walk through. And there were many places, Mary Jo and I were on several calls along with our IRB office staff, where we were saying, okay, do you see how this doesn't make sense? Do you see how a central campus faculty might read that and think something different than what the HSC faculty does or whatever? And so we really walked through the language, and I think doing some of that kind of stuff is going to help, because part of the barriers come from creating a process without input from everybody that might be affected by that. Another example of that, we just recently did an authorship dispute guidelines and SOP. It was jointly written by me and Richard Larson, and we put this together, we edited it together, and we both signed it, and it's going to be in effect for both campuses. We just presented it to the Council of Deans last week. And again, I've had several people say to me, this is great. It's really awesome that we now have, and it's not a policy, but it's a set of guidelines on how to manage who gets to be an author and things like that. But the more we can have these kinds of processes, SOPs, even policies, regardless of what you want to call it, where it's not, well, this is what it is on HSC and this is what it is on main campus, the better it is, and the lower the barrier is, right? So we know that it doesn't matter who you are, you still have the same, guidelines for how you do this or that or the other thing. So those are some of the things we've been doing. We have also, just earlier today, we had the IT governance meeting, where one of the things that I brought up several times, I'm not going to claim ownership that this got discussed at the IT governance, but we are actively working on how to have a single sign-in so that everybody can sign in to everything, because that's another thing. We have the Salute email addresses, and we have the UNM email addresses, and that's another just artificial barrier that we've constructed for ourselves that makes it difficult for people to collaborate. Things like the Qualtrics license, I said it's available to everybody. Qualtrics said it can be every student, every faculty member, every staff member, regardless of what campus they're on. That there are lots of people in HSC who are thrilled that they're going to be able to do that. A lot of people in HSC use RedCap, which is another survey system. Some people on main campus also use RedCap. And so then Richard Larson said, oh, we're going to make, RedCap's available to everybody on main campus. And so by doing that, by saying we're going to be really good about trying to, where it makes sense, to make sure that we're not duplicating systems. RedCap and Qualtrics have different features, if you will. And so some people might not want to change, but if we can do that, or we can say, oh, you get to choose. You can use RedCap if you want to use RedCap or need to for some of the security issues, or you can use Qualtrics. And I'm just using these as examples of ways. I have a way of walking into a room sometimes and sort of going, oh, look, did you see that elephant over there in the corner? And let's start talking about him. His name is George, and we want to help George with all his problems. So we're going to talk about him because he's here. And so I've done that on a number of occasions. And I think that the more we can do that, the more we can continue to just point out, wait, this doesn't make sense. Let's figure out how we can make it make sense. Sometimes we're going to continue to have dual systems just because that's what makes sense. But there are a lot of places I see where we can actually do things that will decrease those barriers. The other thing that we're trying to do with things like interviews with faculty candidates is trying to get them to meet with people if it makes sense for what their research areas is to say, let's have them go over to HSC. And so I've been involved in some of those conversations with individual departments or centers that have said, yeah, we want to have a collaboration with people on HSC. We're talking about changing culture, and that's the last thing I'll say on this topic is that James and Doug Zudonis and Richard Larson and I have been meeting on a regular basis, and we regularly, there's a refrain in those meetings, and I don't know who says it all the time, I think it's Doug, that we're changing culture. And so when we do that, it's A, it's hard, B, it's hard, and C, it's hard. And so, but we're continuing to do that. the four of us I think are committed to doing that. And so if there's stuff that you think needs to be brought to the attention of the leadership, let me know and I will bring it up because I love naming elephants. So, you know.
Okay, one last final question for those of you out there who submitted questions. Some of them she just answered because there were several about the HSC collaboration, but we'll get back to you individually if we didn't address it explicitly. And but there is one last one from Rosa Cervantes. Thank you for this presentation. I think that this creates an opportunity to talk about research from a collaborative lens. How do we leverage our standing as a Hispanic serving institution beyond only qualifying for grant opportunities, but also to really think about how we serve students through our research?
This is a great question, and I will say that I'm not gonna, there's lots of different things we could do, but one thing that has happened in the last couple of months, I was elected to as an executive committee member for the Council on Research of the APLU. And APLU is the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities. And that is a really interesting platform for me to be able to say, as the VPR, because the Council on Research is all VPRs, to all these VPRs, we are an R1 Hispanic serving institution, minority serving institution. Let's talk about this. And in fact, just recently, I got asked to provide some information on ways in which other universities can partner with HSIs. And we had a very interesting conversation about how not to do it. And I'm about to give them some information on how to do it. But that's a really interesting way to think about how can we use that status to build collaborations, but to do it in a meaningful way where we are actually providing new and different types of opportunities for our students through those kinds of collaborations, and by actually being out there and being able to tell the story of an R1 HSI. And I know the president's also involved in a group that is all R1 HSIs, and they're working right now on a legislative priority where to change the language to allow for there to be more funding being put into graduate student stipends and things like that, to support graduate students at HSIs. And so I think there's a lot of ways that we can do that, where we leverage our positions in national organizations and being able to say, look, it's our time. You know, it is our time as a minority serving institution. Everything that's coming out of DC from a funding perspective is really focused on minority students, growing pipeline, and being able to diversify the STEM workforce, for example. And so I think there's a real opportunity space for us to be doing those kinds of things and advocating. So.
Okay, I think that's a great place for us to end today. I do want to say, for those of you again who submitted questions, we didn't address them specifically online. We do have them, and we will get back to you individually. And then for those of you who made the trek over here in person, there are refreshments outside in the hallway that we ask you to partake. And so with that, thank you very much.